Freedom of speech is a noble idea, but noble ideas do not protect themselves. They must be defended, they must be defined, they must be used with care, with purpose, with truth. Freedom of speech was not born in comfort, it was born in resistance. It was created for those who were punished for speaking truth, not to protect those who harm for attention, but for those who speak because they cannot stay silent, because silence would betray the truth. It was not meant to elevate those who humiliate, or to protect those who wound others for applause. But today, there are men who wear free speech like a costume. They wrap themselves in its flag, but carry no truth in their hands. They shout slurs at students. They reduce trauma to punchlines. They bait immigrants with insults. They mock trans children with smugness. Then they call it censorship when they're rightly condemned and ride the backlash to a bigger stage. They do not speak for principle, they perform for profit. And they've confused provocation with purpose. These men, they do not speak from conviction, they speak for clicks. They do not speak because they must, they speak because it pays. And when they are challenged, they do not reflect, they do not reconsider, they call themselves victims, as if decency were oppression. But we must not confuse performance with principle. We must not mistake mockery for meaning. We must not elevate those who degrade. Freedom of speech is a shield, not a weapon. It was never meant to defend those who cause harm and call it honesty. It was never meant to praise those who turn suffering into spectacle. We must protect the freedom to speak, but we must also protect the dignity of those most often spoken over. We must stand guard against censorship, but we must also stand firm against cruelty dressed as courage. We must champion uncomfortable truths, but we must never glorify calculated harm. Because it was not meant to elevate those who humiliate or to protect those who wound others for applause. Criticism is not censorship. Consequences are not oppression, and persecution is not what they suffer. It is what they perform. We must stop confusing accountability with tyranny. We must stop defending the act of speaking when the content degrades, dehumanizes, and divides. We must ask not only if someone has the right to speak, but why they are speaking and what they are hoping to build. Because when you defend freedom by raising up men who mock pain and call it politics, you do not strengthen liberty, you cheapen it. You turn the public square into a stage for cruelty, you silence truth beneath the roar of spectacle. You make it harder for real voices, the honest ones, to be heard above the noise. And that is not freedom, that is regression. The purpose of free speech was never to protect those who degrade. It was never to reward those who divide. It was never meant to elevate those who humiliate, or to protect those who wound others for applause. It was meant to reveal corruption, to challenge systems, to unearth truths buried beneath propaganda, to give voice to the small and the silenced, not power to the loud and the cruel. We must return to that purpose. We must amplify those who speak to heal. We must refuse to hand the microphone to those who seek only to destroy. We must defend the right to speak, but not the right to harm without consequence. We must teach our children that liberty is not licensed to belittle, because what we normalize today, they will inherit tomorrow. We must remember that the strength of a society is not measured by how loudly its bullies can shout, but by how safely its quietest citizens can speak. Because freedom of speech, true freedom, is not about the right to degrade. It is about who dares to tell the truth when truth is no longer fashionable, when truth comes with a cost. And if we lose that, we won't just lose our way. If we forget why we speak, we will not move forward at all. We may take one step forward, but at the risk of falling 1,000 steps behind.